This service is provided in high definition by freeconferencecallhd.com. There are 2 participants in the conference. The recording has started. Please announce yourself.
Call it the Liberty Tree. It's a tall old tree and a strong old tree. And we are the sons, yes, we are the sons of liberty. Save it from the storm, boys. Water down its roots with tea. And the sun will always shine on the old Liberty Tree. It's a tall old tree and a strong old tree. And we are the sons, yes, we are the sons of liberty. March along with the piper, boys. We were born forever free. Let's go pay the piper, boys, beneath the Liberty Tree. It's a tall old tree and a strong old tree. And we are the sons, yes, we are the sons of liberty. Pay the price they're asking, boys. Always pay the tyrant's fee. Never give up the struggle, boys. Fight for the Liberty Tree. It's a tall old tree and a strong old tree. And we are the sons, yes, we are the sons of liberty. Stand for the rights of man, boys. Stand against all tyranny. Hang the lance of freedom, boys. High on the Liberty Tree. It's a tall old tree and a strong old tree. And we are the sons, yes, we are the sons of liberty. It will grow as we grow, boys. It will be as strong as we. We must cling to our faith, boys. Faith in the Liberty Tree. It's a tall old tree and a strong old tree. And we are the sons, yes, we are the sons of liberty.
Liberty's Guardian, Guns and Ammunition, a family-owned business located in the heart of Ohio's hunting country. Let us help you find the right shotgun or rifle for you. Or if you're looking for a pistol or concealed carry, we have a nice selection of compact and subcompact pistols for that too. Check out our website at www.libertiesguardian.com. That website again is www.libertiesguardian.com. Go to the website and check out our selection today.
Join Mark and Don for Weapons Wednesday, where you'll learn how to use everything from your bare hands to your average AR-15.
The 12-gauge autoloader.
Sure.
The 45 long slide.
Yep.
With laser sighting.
You betcha.
The Uzi 9mm.
Yes, sir.
Phased plasma rifle in a 40-watt range.
What are you, crazy?
Wrong.
Okay. They'll talk about that too. So whatever question you have about whatever weapon you have, call Mark and Don on Weapons Wednesday. And remember, your mind is your first best weapon.
We all need to prepare ourselves. You might have the food, water, gold, and silver, but ask yourself, are you truly prepared? That's why you need to visit MaineMilitary.com. MaineMilitary.com carries everything you need. Gas masks, fire starter kits, high-capacity magazines, chemical suits, military surplus items, and much more. Do you own a firearm? MaineMilitary.com has a large selection of pistols and rifles suited for your needs. Are your local stores sold out of ammunition? Call or visit them today for prices on hard-to-find ammo and bulk ammo orders. You don't need to worry about having a military surplus store in your area because MaineMilitary.com is the only store you'll ever need, all from the comfort of your computer. Visit them online today at MaineMilitary.com. That's Maine, like the state, military.com.
I had a dream the other night that, well, I didn't understand. A figure walked in through the mist with a flintlock in his hand. His clothes were torn and dirty as he stood there by my bed. He took off his three-cornered hat, and speaking low to me, he said, "We fought a revolution to secure our liberty. We wrote the Constitution as a shield from tyranny. For future generations, this legacy we gave. In this, the land of the free and home of the brave. The freedoms we secured for you, we hoped you'd always keep. But tyrants labored endlessly while your parents were asleep. Your freedom's gone, your courage lost. You're no more than a slave. In this, the land of the free and home of the brave. You buy permits to travel and permits to own a gun, permits to start a business or to build a place for one. On land that you believe you own, you pay a yearly rent, although you have no voice in saying how the money's spent. Your children must attend a school that doesn't educate, and your Christian values can't be taught according to the state. You read about the current news in a regulated press, and you pay a tax you do not owe to please the IRS. Your money is no longer made of silver nor of gold. You trade your wealth for paper so your life can be controlled. You pay for crimes that make our nation turn from God and shame. You've taken Satan's number. You've traded in your name. You've given government control to those who do you harm so they could burn down churches and seize the family farm and keep our country deep in debt, put men of God in jail, harass your fellow countrymen while corrupted courts prevail. Your public servants don't uphold the solemn oaths they've sworn, and your daughters visit doctors so their children won't be born. Your leaders send artillery and guns to foreign shores and send your sons to slaughter fighting other people's wars. Can you regain the freedoms for which we fought and died? Or don't you have the courage or the faith to stand with pride? And are there no more values for which you'll fight to save? Or do you wish your children to live in fear and be a slave? Oh, sons of the Republic, arise, take a stand. Defend the Constitution, the supreme law of the land. Preserve our great republic and each God-given right. And pray to God to keep the torch of freedom burning bright. As I awoke, he'd vanished in the mist from whence he came. His words were true. We are not free, but we have ourselves to blame. For even now as tyrants trample each God-given right, we only watch and tremble, too afraid to stand and fight. If he stood by your bedside in a dream while you were asleep and wondered what remains of the freedoms he'd fought to keep, what would be your answer if he called out from the grave? Is this still the land of the free and home of the brave? God bless you, and God bless this republic.
Well, I know I miss more than hit with a face that was launched to sink, and I seldom feel the bright relief. It's been the worst day since yesterday. If there's one thing I have said, is that the dreams I once had now lay in bed. As the four winds blow my wits through the door, it's been the worst day since yesterday. Falling down to you, sweet ground, where the flowers they bloom. Well, it's there I'll be found. Hurry back to me, my wild calling. It's been the worst day
And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is the first hour of the afternoon intelligence report. I'm Art Cornke. One day closer to victory for all of our brothers and sisters, both on and behind the lines in occupied territories, southwest, east, northeast, and south. Ladies and gentlemen, you were listening to us on Libertytreeradio.4mg.com, AM and FM micro stations, AM and FM conventional stations, Liberty Tree Radio on YouTube, and CB base stations, along with Ultra-Net, Hallmark, and Golden Spike technologies, east and west of the Mississippi, along with Alaska. Good afternoon to all of our friends out there in lower 49, including the great state of Jefferson, along with the outlying two states, CONUS, the territories, and the clock. It is 5:11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the bottom of the state of Michigan, and that's down here in the lower 5 counties, the southeastern greater Detroit area. Well, Detroit kept trying to claim more, but we're really not part of Detroit, okay? Anyway, it is Thursday. It is the 13th of August. It is Thursday the 13th, dun, 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 which means absolutely nothing. It's Thursday the 13th. Yeah, that's kind of close, but not quite. Anyway, it is the 12th year of Open Fabian Socialist and Soviet Socialist Occupation of America with a K, 2020 Old Earth Calendar, 2020 Year of Conflict and Year of the Dance of Swords. Battle begins. A couple interesting things. How many people saw the guns drawn by Antifa on people downtown with vehicles, stopping vehicles like they do in Portland, only now with guns drawn and brought up to muzzle point, high but not quite pointed at the people, pointed at the car though, and then ready to shoot the people that, the drivers are supposed to be on the street, by the punk communists that are out there frothing at the mouth. Well, this looked like a classic quadriplegic homosexual Eskimo out there / Soviet. Guys, it's only a matter of time for somebody from the side just pops her ass with a rifle and says, bye-bye, or boom, boom. Or there's going to be an exchange. Just not an if, it's just a when. And it's a good thing. It's like I said, when this starts, we keep throwing gasoline on it. The cops will come to the aid of Antifa. They will side with Antifa. More on that in a minute, but an example of what happens, well, to a degree when they all decide to bend over and keep licking communist arse. That big bunghole is real tasty for a cop or a political bureaucrat, as long as the paycheck keeps showing up, no matter how bad it's wonderful, boss, yeah, it's really wonderful, blah, 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 blah. That's what the typical bureaucrat or cop will do when the communists are in power. However, well, it turns out that in Seattle today, if you didn't catch the news, 7-1, they voted 7-1 on the city council to defund the police department. Whatever the hell that means now. Let's remember that, royalty's going to have Imperial Guard. They'll either hire mercenary Imperial Guard, or they're going to be reassigning the Policis Maximus suck bungholus to whatever key positions are necessary, like councilmen's homes, councilman-owned properties. And I'm going to point something out. We've seen all this before in Detroit. Right down to the cops. I mean, granted, Nancy, I just had this conversation. It's like, yeah, the cops have been organized crime for quite some time. In every big city. They are. They are. There's nothing you can tell me otherwise. They are. We know they are. However, at least for the most part, they were less likely to run you over on the street or gun you down, although they progressively have gotten more and more arrogant because they've gotten so much Jewish, Israeli, frothing at the mouth police state training. They forgot who was paying the paycheck, and because of that, they've made a lot of enemies to the general population, too, and not necessarily the knuckle-dragging / frothing at the mouth leftists. We've talked about this for decades now. And so, again, as I would point out, if the commies decide to go after the guns, who are they going to send out after the guns? These cops that are, well, now some of them are being, quote-unquote, defunded. That just means that regional police and federal police are what they're actually going to be moving to endorse. They're doing this in an oblique way, just like they tried to do back in 1988, 1987. Actually, 88 to 89 was the big window because it all tied in with George Herbert Walker Bush and, of course, regional government. Now, you got to remember, do the math, 88, 89, okay, and, there was another wave of this in 1977 under Jimmy Carter, 77, 78. I keep telling everybody this. Guys, there was so much stuff going on in that 2-year, 3-year window, and it rolled over to 81, 82. Then we had not really even a let-up, but we had a kind of a neutral period, and then Bush, as soon as the Reagan assassination took place and Bush was able to finally, after a year and a half, brush out most of the Reagan people, it became a Bush administration with New World Order cliquists, and they just went to town. They just accelerated everything en masse, step by step by step by step. And then in the middle late 80s, that's when they hit again and started the stroke, which beat the drum into Waco, first Ruby Ridge, Waco, whole series of little sieges and attacks, though, before that. And then finally, again, the Cascade 2, what we saw with the middle 90s, okay? Then they had to back off again, or at least go neutral. I mean, granted, we'll find some crises. We keep finding new crises on the horizon to declare war. Needless to say, the one, Y2K, which was a government-created and really bureaucracy-created problem. It was not something that really was all really in the plan, but rather a demonstration of how lazy and how piss-poor our education system was and had become by the time we get to the year 2000. See, let me give you a little cue on that one with Y2K. If you were on a college campus, the one thing that everybody kept saying is, well, the reason they didn't worry about the clock for all of these old systems is because they purely did not believe that those systems would be in operation in the year 2000. They absolutely did not believe. If you talk to anybody who was in the planning stages, a lot of them are dead now. I mean, this is the year 2020. Those guys were in their 60s and 70s back when Y2K took place. Okay? A lot of them progressively have left us. And these characters all said the same thing. It's like, hey, it's not my fault. Even Greenberg and a bunch of the others, said the same thing. It's like, hey, we figured that with technology advancing the way it was, whatever we were doing, we're going to be dinosaur bones by the year 2000. Who are we to know that you people all of a sudden got in a brain fart? Well, in reality, they should have known because they were the process and decision makers for the public fool system and the progressive spiraling down and crashing of the abilities of the population based on the New World Agenda did exactly what they were supposed to do. So we were stuck with old Earth 70s, 80s technology, or there was no mark in the 90s. No, that stuff was already in the military in the 70s and the 80s. You just didn't see it in public venue until they wanted to mass produce more and make money off it so they could pay for the next generation, which you don't see because it's under the table, buried in mountains, flying in the sky, and it's hidden away. The better stuff. Now, some of the other military junk still running off floppy disk, and as I pointed out many times, that doesn't make any difference. I saw some BS article on Google. They're upgrading the 747s with floppy disk. Yeah, well, because they were built, to military spec. They were built for, World War III, and they were built like a brick dinosaur, and they bought tons of spare parts and had warehouses of replacements based on, World War III nuclear exchange. If it breaks and burns out because of EMP, you go to the shielded warehouse, you pull out another one, you stuff it in the slot, and everything works. That's how it's supposed to work. That's how it's supposed to go. And so, in reality, switching out, the only thing that the Jewish, oi boys want everybody to get away from all those old systems is so that they can have their oi boy operations out of San Francisco and Queerdom, Israel, and get into the software programming and the hardware backdoor insert technology, just like they used for the 9/11 fiasco, okay? So with all of that being the case, no, I think we'll just leave things the way they are. Apparently they can't manipulate enough of the 747 so they could use them as commanded bombs from a third party. Not yet. Apparently that tells you something when they're doing propaganda on the public end. They're trying to pressure the government to, just go over to Blatzenstein system so we can control everything. Oi, oi. That's really what it's about. And if you don't think so, watch the macro actions, okay? Let me give you an example of something with that before I go back to Seattle. When you pull up Google, there's a whole bunch of boof little screens there. Well, each one, if you look at it, is all leftist tripe or New World Order agenda tripe. But pay attention, just casually look at the battery of titles. This is where I talk about macro push, okay, as opposed to micro. Now, each one of them is a micro action, and most of it is drivel, okay, absolute drivel. But what they're doing is they're reinforcing drivel with more drivel. However, if you pay attention, they also map out, and this is where you can map out the next attack on America, by the macro activities of all of these different institutions and mechanisms. Now, you already know that they're on the same page. You've had people, hundreds of people have shown you how you can go from one network or channel to the next, and they all say the exact same thing. They are all in a scripted lie, okay? The Democrats are all in a scripted lie. You don't think so? Watch the same verbiage for every one of these asshats. Do you think that they're so bright they can figure out how to do that? No. Their handlers, the Oi Boys, Jewish Mafia, the scripters, are writing all their tripe for them, and they just mouth it. You got this latest thing that's going to be supposedly vice president with, Biden. Well, there's a tentacle up that bunghole so deep that when she opens her mouth, you can see a little tentacle with a yarmulke on it. That's how simple that is to understand. And all of these characters, again, what you see with all of the controlled Silicon Valley / read that, queers a $3 bill, Fruit Loop guppies out of the Silicon Valley area / San Francisco. Just go from group to group to group to area to area. You'll see the same macro patterns, and even though you may see a different article, or it may change it up a little bit, but it'd be the same article. Remember, they do that by region. So you may see something a little different, which is kind of fun when you can scoot across the planet to another area or compare notes with another person, something that a lot of people fail to do sometimes. Hey, I just had this thing pop up in Google here, and I'm in the area of Region 5. You're over there in Arizona. What did you see? Go over to Google and, just go ahead and pop in like you're going to use Google to go wherever, and look to see what screens pop up. What does it say where you are? Because they do this is a constant, ongoing, cyclic rag. It's like bulk tripe. Okay. Now, going back to Seattle, we saw this in Detroit before. When they burned Detroit, what you're seeing now with Seattle is how they burned Detroit. Remember, I've been talking for the last year and a half, 2 years, about the microprocess here, which is an extension of the Barry Soetoro / Obama and Soros plan to destroy about 11 American cities and tear them to the ground. You remember that? And by the way, Flint, Michigan was the pilot program for this. Now, if you take a look at what they're doing, let's think about this. If you're the Jewish mob and the Chinese, and you want to get hold of cheap property, you got premium property in a coastal city or a critical infrastructure city, which is, again, all of our coastlines should be treated that way, but they're not, okay? But not by the traders that are in Washington, D.C., who are globalists who know exactly what I'm talking about here. You're going to run down the police. You're going to run down and destroy the businesses. The logic is that the Jewish mob, who has either paper on those businesses, storefronts, or whatever already, if they don't already own them, they've got the paper on them for the rental. They're going to run out and run down, and they've got government tits on standby that are going to drop from the sky to relieve them when they start to have their crisis in downtown Seattle. They are going to be able to suck off that multi-trillion-dollar tit and run that money right out of the country over to the banks in Haifa and Tel Aviv and make your head swim. In addition to that, there's also the process of not just that relief money, but don't forget that other people are going to eventually be owning it. The Chinese in particular would like to have better control over the eastern seaboard before this stuff kicks off. The individuals inside the regime that are bought and paid for whores, 7 to 1, 7 voted for defunding the police, 1 against. guess what? What you need to do is a complete bank survey. Where where is FinCEN on this Financial Crimes Enforcement Network? Where's FinCEN? Okay, where is FinCEN right now? Because all of these dirty little prostitutes that we're talking about here, every last stinking one of them, needs to be checked top to bottom. These people are burning down a major metropolitan area. They know exactly what they're doing. There is no doubt about what they're doing. If you wonder where they're going, look at Detroit. If you're wondering look at Flint, Michigan. Here's the thing. The most recent version of what's happened. Go to Flint, Michigan, and in fact, here's a fun one. Drive through Google through Flint, block by block. Go to the industrial area, block by block. You don't have to get up or drive to Michigan anymore. You literally can just simply, get on your computer, go to Google, and Google will let you see what downtown metropolitan Detroit and all the outlying areas of Detroit look like, all of the outlying neighborhoods. You can go to Pontiac, Michigan. You can go anywhere to the places I've been talking about, and you could drive every street, and at least nobody's going to walk up and blow your brains out, take your car, grab your cell phone, pull your cards out, and run them over to a machine and run them out as quick as they can. Instead, you can do it all from half a country away. Now, you think about that. Now, of course, the doctor said, well, okay, there's not much you can doctor because, what happened to Detroit happened over the last 30 years. And even if they took images from last year, that actually might be worse than this year because, again, less wreckage was moved. Not that much wreckage was moved, and all the empty vacant lots, all the neighborhoods with, toothless, no houses, toothless neighborhoods, one or two teeth left in the gums, everything else gone. Flint is the model. Flint was the pilot for what Obama/Barry Soetoro planned for tearing down American metropolitan areas. That's why the water supply issue went the way it did. That's why all these elements people don't understand. Well, I mean, I do. Some of you do if you've been listening to this program, and we've explained it to everybody over and over again. That what they did, the reason they had to juggle around the money and actually finally restart the Flint, Michigan water system is because they bought into the Detroit water system. Now, I want you to look at a map. Go get a map of Michigan. Do you mean to say the city of Detroit was processing and pumping water through a series of services, by the way, pumping stations, etc., all the way across from whatever their service centers were, all the way up to Flint? Go look and find Flint on the map. Follow I-75. So what they did is, the federal money started to have the brakes put on it because the plan was to knock down Flint. Now, Barry Soetoro didn't get everything he wanted, and nothing, the best laid plans are rats and rodents, like I said. When they pushed this thing, they got part of it in gear, just like the, cars, cash to clunkers thing, right? Remember that? Now, they quietly fell flat on his face, but a whole bunch of dealerships got screwed because the money never showed up. They destroyed serviceable cars they could have made some cash back on. The whole thing was a classic communist intentional failed fiasco. That's exactly what happened with Flint, Michigan. So, again, they turned, like the water thing, they turned the water back on because they had to operate with the money they had. Now, they had money for operating in their own city, and they only had so much money. All the extra tit money was shut off. Literally, the valves for that cash flow disappeared. Why? Well, the plan was for Flint to be one-tenth the size that it is, and all those houses and all those buildings to be shredded and burned and rioted down just like they did in Detroit. Model and the pattern was what they did in Detroit. The next step is what you see, the next step is attempting to copy it with Flint, Michigan, which, by the way, was already a good portion on the way anyway, because it was black-ruled. Blacks were already burning down each neighborhood just like they did in Detroit. And yes, it was the blacks, period. You try to say anything else, oh, you can't say that, or you shouldn't say that. More importantly, as I shouldn't. I'm not supposed to speak truths. But Flint, Michigan, the Detroit, like Detroit, the blacks got power, which basically means that the Jews were running the operation, and the black meat puppets got to do whatever the hell they wanted, eat steak every day as organized crime minister, crime bosses, screw the rest of the city, steal as much as they could, and guess what? Watch the tent fold. So Seattle is now in the same motion. Of course, everybody's talking about how everybody's leaving Seattle. Well, here's the thing. This is what really pisses me off. You know what's going to happen here? All these parasite, idiot, nincompoops and twits that helped to make this happen are now not liking all the Baby Ruth and yellow water floating around. The Baby Ruth's floating around in the pool, and that water is yellow and it's got a bad smell to it. But it's still a swimming pool, but it's not so much fun. It's a leftist commie swimming pool. So all these fools and idiots, and we got to box them in. They're going to pick their arse up. They're going to go somewhere else, and like the feces birds that they are, they're going to sit themselves somewhere else down and tell everybody how they got to be just like where they came from. Until they have more Baby Ruths, big chocolate bars with lots of peanut chunks in it and chunks of undigested corn. And, oh, yeah, that yellow water will get steamier and warmer and more aromatic. And, yeah, and then they'll pick their arse up. They'll feces bird their little hind end on down the road again. Now, basically, if you did it, we need to lock them in and don't let them leave. That would really be the best bet. You really wanted to be that independent Soviet socialist operation, and I thoroughly believe you should be. But once you've got it, you're stuck with it, and you live with it. See, that's the problem. They won't. All of these shallow brains will repeat this crap over and over and over and over, tearing down your country in the process because you should have shot their ass to begin with. Just that simple. So anyway, now here's the other part about this. I'm going to ask you something. If you were in Seattle and all of a sudden you have these commies that today, right now, say that they're going to defund the police, you might be one of the new Praetorian/Supreme Soviet Guard that is allowed to stay, provided you watch the communist businesses or the communist home, or guard them at work while they're at the palace, the Grand Palace of the Supreme Soviet in downtown Seattle. That's not going to take everybody they've got. So here's the thing. If you were a cop right now, what kind of job would you do from this day forward? Especially one who's kind of, centrist, narcissistic, has been given lots of Jewish, training in Haifa, Tel Aviv, or right there in, right there in Seattle where the Israelis come to them and tell them how to hate everybody and how they need to get beat down and how their feces doesn't stink and everybody else's does. But now all of a sudden, you've been told that they don't want your feces around. They don't want your stink around. Are you going to go crazy before they go? Because, a lot of them are on drugs. A lot of those cops are on drugs. Are they going to go a little crazy in the head? Yeah, one of them might actually get rid of the mayor or get rid of, you never know. It wouldn't be the first time, people. But the other consideration is, and this is the most likely for a lot of them that may not be on drugs and may not be drunks and may not be, may still be thinking, is they'll be thinking they just want to get out the door and they're going to stop doing everything. What do you mean you sent somebody? We're trying to send somebody. We'll see what we can do. We've got your address and information. We're going to have you hang up. Well, normally the 911 operator says don't hang up. Nah, because I don't want to hear you screaming and dying on the phone. You just go ahead and take care of whatever you got to take care of there. If our people show up, let me know. Give me a call back. But wait a minute. No, they're busting in the door. Oh, no, wait a minute. What do you think the person that's just been told that they want to get rid of you, what do you think they're going to do? And don't forget, the biggest problem is somebody that's in a big city like Seattle. If I were in a conservative area, would I want to hire a cop? Of course, now I got to remember these are Masonic Lodge buddies and synagogue, yarmulke wearer buddies. So yeah, they probably can get a job from going from a leftist cesspit like that to some fake conservative area that really isn't fake, isn't conservative, just fake. Forgive me. And yeah, they probably could get another job there for a while. But if it's a shallow conservative, read that spineless Republican district where they don't know how to hold their mud, they can't hold ground. Their idea of a line is, the line way back there they got to reach in order to, do that 100-yard sprint to get away from whatever might be actual crisis. That's that finish line, as in unask the AO and get out of Dodge. Well, how long do you think this is going to last? How long before this starts to cascade? Just a little heads up. That's all part of the big formula here because, again, October we're going to be hitting the shoals. This is where you find out that the draft of your ship is deeper than it should be, and the rocks were actually piled up by your enemy, and each one of the rocks was actually sharpened before it was put below the waves. And the international kosher bankers that have set up the trap, or, I should say the wreck, first they're going to have to scrape out the bottom of the ship so there's no way for the water to be kept out. And that's coming with October with the turnaround in the U.S. budget. Because that's coming no matter what. Remember, that's technically the end of the year. Now, all of your quarters and all of your operations work the way we normally do with the calendar cycle, and you know that. But this is going to get to be really interesting here real quick. Okay? And once we get through the October, scuttling of the ship, so to speak, or the raking of the hull, then you've got the shipwreck of November, and there's just no way in hell that's going to settle any other way than disaster. That is going to be a fight. So, who's getting ready for that? Well, the latest discussion has been that, government's buying food. Well, not just government's buying food, but other smaller governments are buying food. Now, they've been buying food. But one of the things that I'm watching for here, and have been for a little bit, is what are in critical shelf-stable items that pretty well you expect to see in the Pap and Pavlum government larder when it comes to storage. So one of the things we're watching for, we've noticed that American cheese / Velveeta and the storable shelf-stable cheeses are getting progressively thinner. Now, it doesn't mean that people aren't actually buying the stuff. They are, but the inventory is not being replaced like other items that are not being replaced. Some things, right there every day. Isopropyl alcohol is something that everybody should know about. Now, that's, of course, consumption versus production and getting it to where it needs to be. I don't know if you paid attention. We have talked about this at one point or another, but you're not getting, true rubbing alcohol when you're buying it at the store anyway. It's 50-50. It's been cut, and there's more water in it than normally would be there. So if you're going to use it for any number of other flame projects, like for instance heating, like or cooking, you use a small amount of alcohol. Understand that the purity level is way lower on the store-bought stuff that presently has been hitting the shelf at like Dollar Tree, Dollar General, even the pharmacies, okay? Why is that? Well, they were thinning it because if they already were having a problem with production and getting it to where it's supposed to, now, it doesn't mean they couldn't make more. They really could. I mean, come on, people. How many distilleries do we have in the United States? They wouldn't necessarily have to be focusing on spirits as in fact, to keep people employed. It'd be great for them to actually slide sideways into another production of some kind. But they're not just into consumable spirits, or they could produce something other than consumable spirits. Now, we do not want to denature alcohol because that makes it deadly. Let's remember that, denatured. We don't want to set something up that's going to poison somebody down the road. So we do need to look at another business / interest, at least small production everywhere that we can, and that is alcohol distilleries. They are available over the counter. There's all kinds of them. If you don't know how to make something, guess what? You really can buy it for the moment. Stainless steel, copper, everything is the proper fittings and fixtures, and there's even variety of sizes to choose from. I was just looking at them yesterday. In fact, came up on them when I was talking about them, well, after I talked about them, by accident, because I was looking for water purification systems and specifically distilled water processors. I've got a couple that we just got for free that are virtually new, but I need to order one part, and it's available. They're readily available. But in the process, I stumbled, fortunately, onto the very thing I was interested in or before that, which was stills. And the big thing is that these are industrial made. I mean, they are built like a brick doghouse. That's one of the really most important things, is that you really would rather have it grossly over-engineered. When you build it yourself, grossly over-engineer it. Why not? At this point in time, plumbing parts are pretty cheap. Even the copper is reasonably priced, so there is no reason not to actually be putting a decent still together. I don't care where you do it. I don't care if you at least just put all the technology on the shelf. Go find a good design. There's a number of different ones out there. Pick the design, look at the inventory list, go out and buy all the parts to do 2, 3, 4 stills, however many you want to have on standby, and leave them all disassembled. You put them out in the middle of nowhere, BFE, have everything ready to be put together, but have it out in the middle of nowhere. This is one of the many things that could be in a cache, but this is an industrial product, a medical product, a merchandising project for again, entrepreneurs. And this is one of the many things you need to be thinking in advance about. If you can't get it, we're going to need it. And this is like a lot of the other subjects. Some things we're not going to get unless we can either, smuggle them in, import them in, or do business with the countries in some way, because they're not going to accept whatever we have in the way of currency. But coffee, for instance, is another one. Now, before I go any farther in supply and support, let me remind everybody of something, and I've said this for decades. Tea. You can still go to the dollar stores and find tea, not the way you used to. It used to be full boxes for $1 or $1.25 that are the no-name brand. Look to see what the cheapest, biggest boxes of tea, regular tea bags, not loose tea, not the tea cups where you put in a machine, although I just got a bunch of those for free, too. I mean, a case of them. So they're on standby. I don't have a machine for them. I'm going to see if I can find one of our allies that does. But the regular tea bags, why? They're great to issue out. They're perfect. Think about it. No fuss, no muss, no fighting. Congratulations. Are we getting any coffee? Nope, you got tea. Here you go. Hot water's over there. Here's your tea bag. Go, get out of the way. And by the way, don't throw your tea bag away. And then after you tell everybody when you're handing them out, you stop everybody. Okay, everybody listen in the mess hall here. The tea bags we just gave you, don't you throw them away. Those are good for more than one cup of tea, and I recommend that you save them. Again, use your spoon. You can have that first cup of tea, then take the hot water, take the bag, put it in there, let it soak. It'll take longer. You won't get as strong a cup of tea, but you will get a second cup of tea, and maybe a third, and maybe a fourth. At least it'll flavor change the water until it runs out. But you better save them, because it's all you get. See how that works? But better that than none. It's a form of caffeine. It's something that will be available. Again, it's much cheaper than the coffee, and it doesn't mean I don't have coffee stacked up. I just bought more coffee today in the smaller retort pouches, so that it'd be easy for you to trade, easy for you to issue it out. Again, you know the exact amount. The factory did it, not Mark, so you can't challenge it. And congratulations. I have this, you have that. We want to trade. We agree. Good trade. See how that works? So more coffee, but tea bags, if you can find tea. I grab all the tea that I get, like in especially, well, let me give you an example. The estate sales. The estate sales, sometimes they have food, sometimes they don't. Let me point something out. How are somebody going to mess up these foil-packed retort pouch, or little tiny retort, old foil-packed pouch tea bags? You can't. So if you're worried about them, I don't see why. But look at it this way. Keep piling those up. You can get them for nothing. Usually at the end of the sale, they're going to throw that stuff out or they'll give it to you. And that includes canned goods, jarred goods, dry goods. Well, guess what? Take the time and go through the sale and tea bags, put them over into the category issue. If you're worried about it yourself, can them up, save all these little tins. I've got a crate of them right behind me right now, the square Christmas tins of all different sizes. Some of them are liquor tins. Those are better still. And what you do is you pack up each of the batches of bags into a series of Ziploc bags. And then once you got them in the Ziploc bag, if you got them loaded up, stack them inside those tins. Mice can't get to them. It's another form of protection. In addition, you got the Ziploc bag. You've got the pouch, which is sealed in foil. These suckers should be good for a good long time and kept clean and kept dry. And mouse-free. Nibble, nibble, nibble. Most likely they won't. So, and they at least won't test them, even if they can't really get to them. Remember, mice will nibble at stuff and ruin it and not be able to eat it. It's just the way they are, especially when it's the winter and they're starving. Always remember that. Mice will, and deer are the same way in the field. My God, it's really no different if you haven't watched, nature. Okay, they'll nibble, spit it out, decide, well, I don't like that one, but that looks better over there. Even though it's the exact same thing they were just eating. Oh, that's much tastier. So, again, hang on to everything and anything that you can in the way of foodstuffs. Also, keep buying. Dollar Tree is going to be starting to see some of the canned goods in the more prolific areas. Example, if you guys around the top of Ohio, the bottom of Michigan, the top of Ohio, the Ohio Dollar Trees get from the canneries some phenomenal deals, and we do not see them even up here in Washtenaw County. One county down, and actually one county, and you're on the border. One county below us, you get through them, you're on the border with Ohio. On the other side, the Toledo and all of the Dollar Trees that are along the bottom of the bottom of our state, top of their state, we have up to and including gallon cans of food that show up at the Dollar Tree for $1. It's random stuff, and it's like, well, what do I want a gallon of plums for? Well, for $1, that's a whole lot of eating. And if you have a bunch of, hungry howies, drop in, Bob and the fire team or Bob and the squad, and they're all sitting there, and you plop their arses up to the table, those are guys that are going to be wanting to chew on something in volume. Well, big bucket of rice, whole bunch of whatever you got in the way of slubgullion to throw on the rice, and guess what? You got a treat when they're done. You got a can of plums, canned fruit. That is a big, happy, warm thing, especially if you haven't been eating much for a while, and that's going to be a treat. Okay, just that simple. So all of the canned goods like this, the larger cans, show up from the canneries in northern Ohio in the Dollar Trees from about this part of the season on, because the first batch of stuff has been canned. And it can be anything that shows up. I can't even tell you for sure what it's going to be, because it's a matter of which cannery has what available. Go ahead, we got a caller.
Mike, as far as the tea and coffee, both are grown more so than not, with the exception probably of Hawaii, at or below the equator. So we can't grow them here. Get all you can. Now on the tea, I would absolutely recommend you get a box of it. You tear the box open, get a half-gallon mason jar or a large Tupperware container with a tight-fitting lid, and take the tea out of the box and store it in there. It'll not only keep it longer, it will absolutely keep any problems or rodents, especially in the winter. They're always looking for somewhere to go. And if you got old country houses or you live in a country, they just find their way in somehow. And but they won't find their way to your tea. Keep the coffee, if you can that way, because they will chew through Mylar. They'll chew through the plastic on those 100-count boxes of tea. And, yeah. So
even tin. They will even nibble on tin to a degree. They will take the time and, nibble like a mouse. They're nibbling on our house. And you'll find when you pull storage out, if you've had mice in the area, you'll find little scratch and ding marks, and it's repeated where several times they made the effort, which means whatever they could perceive was in there, or just the idea. However it works with mouse brains, we don't know, and we don't know how good their senses are. So maybe somehow their mouse force sense perceived what was in the tin, but they will make the effort. You'll find that up north. We have a lot. Anything you want to leave up north in the cabin, everything is tinned. everything. They've done that forever.
You have Michigan super mice.
Yeah, we do. Plus, we have, don't forget, all the other creatures that, they got their little paws and they can get in, like, Rocky the raccoon is quite creative. Especially,
it also fit on a skewer.
Yeah.
Anyways, but that's one way to do. I've never ever had an issue. Glasses, even with the steel bands, you got your flour, sugar, coffee. You can make your own canister set. I probably wouldn't go with a number 10 can with those plastic lids that you get with it to put on after you open it, because that's too easy for them to chew through.
Well, they'll make a nice, neat hole in one spot so they don't have to mess up. They have the cover over the rest of the food that's still in there.
Right, but the tin seems to. I've never had an issue with it.
Right.
And so I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Well, again, one of the things about the tins is right now, guys, the resale shops are hurting. The interesting thing is the way it's happened here. We have one of the bigger resale shops that has shut its doors. They won't let anybody in. They've gone total paranoid. The other one, wide open. It's run by a really cool bunch of people, and the thing is, since their doors are open, their dock is open. And guys, they are getting all the stuff that the other sites normally would take, and they just don't have room. So right now, the ones that are open, you can make some phenomenal deals with. You can find good, decent people there usually, and you can say, hey, I'll take this, and all of those. I'll take all that out of the way. It's in the weather. It's going to get ruined. Or it's outside in the back dock, and, it's over on the extension dock, and you got canvas on this and whatever there. Go out and look to see what's sitting around out there, because you'd be surprised. And Christmas tins are something that, they've got a monster amount of. That's where this box I just came from, where it came from, forgive me. And it's an Apple box, and it's, cans inside cans inside cans inside cans, the way I restacked it. And took up a very narrow amount of space, but the larger, longer cans are these liquor cans, which are phenomenal because some of those I didn't realize, because of the contents of what they're holding, are double-walled metal. They're not just metal on the, like one layer of metal on the outside. They've got a nest metal on the inside, another shield. So when you put them together, you got a double clamshell. You got an overlapping clamshell lip of about, I'd say an inch. They lock very firmly, and they have both an inner and outer metal shell. Oh, Mark, another thing is, I don't recommend people really eat potato chips and all that stuff, but people that do it, you get the chips or anything that comes basically like that in those Mylar bags. If you've got a vacuum sealer and it's got that heat bar, you don't use the vacuum for it necessarily, just the heat bar. But those bags can be cleaned out and reused and sealed with the heat bar to put other things in later. And so those are something to wash out, dry them, flatten them out, and store them somewhere until you need them. And, you can reuse them. And they get smaller as you go because you got to cut the seal off. And it'll get half-inch smaller, but still. They can be repurposed, for a few times. Right, and again, just trim them up. Know where your next point is. Understand that they're not going to hold as much, but they will hold a goodly amount of material. All of them will hold something. That's one thing about the Mylar, like the dry pack, especially rices, things like that, even soups and whatever. You want to redo something or make something up, like a vegetable mix or whatever with your dried vegetables, you can use those bags again. And by the way, they've got a little seasoning or whatever in there, whatever was in there before. You're going to vacuum seal them right back up and time store them. The material that might be in there that's left over as residue is not critical, and it's not going to be hurtful to the product. In fact, it may even enhance it. So just think ahead. When we do dried, like right now we just did a bunch of dried celery, a bunch of dried onions, We're getting ready to do elderberries. The elderberries turned today, so we have to start picking elderberries all over this county, and that's a big chunk of money. It's medicinal. There are so many different uses that are presently accepted now. We can jar them, we can can them, but we're going to dry a bunch and put as much of them into storage as we possibly can. And by the way, we're going to use the Mylar bags, just like you were talking about there, for that purpose, to get them into an environment where once we get them dried, we're going to keep them, again, as dry as possible, minimal moisture content, and we can also trade, barter, and exchange these, which is really cool.
If you buy them like Mountain Rose Herbs or something like that, and you buy dried elderberries by the pound, ooh, buddy, they are
$27 a pound is what they went for last year.
If you look around the countryside, there's so many places they're growing wild, in like next to the drainage ditch, up towards the edge of properties, and nobody ever picks them. It's just they grow year after year, just like the asparagus you see, and nobody ever touches it. So that is a resource. That is absolutely a resource. My guess is these are not Sambucus nigra, the black elderberry, which I have in my backyard, and now thanks to the birds from eating them all and pooping them out, I have it growing all over the property.
Right.
Which is a good thing.
They're self-distributing through the organic seed shooters.
Yeah, so now I have way more than I originally had. I had two kinds. I had the black and then what they call like the American elderberry. And both are good. It's just that the black for the colds, flus, things of that nature is a lot higher quality. And if you're going to buy that and spend the money and you're getting it for colds, and you definitely want to go with the Sambucus nigra, because that's definitely the stronger one.
Well, in this case, we have to go with what we have. Okay, we do have a phenomenal crop this year. And I would point out, one of the things that's going to happen again, we are looking at, I don't know what this is, but we're seeing a major turn and expansion in all the purple fruits, and also a major thump, like when they're producing, they've been just jumping all at once. And that's what just happened here. 2 days ago, going on 3, we were still in the green range. And then yesterday and today, all of a sudden, everything went purple. And I mean fast purple.
A dry year on plums. My trees were hanging to the ground with plums last year. It was ridiculous. And now there ain't a plum to be had. So I guess trees do have down years. And I noticed some of my apple trees are kind of like that. Some, and I don't know why, but they used to be bigger. And this year they're like half the size. I don't get it, but they are. They're half the size of what they were last year. It's just weird, but yeah.
Well, now that's the only thing I haven't checked is the stone fruits, as far as the like you just mentioned, the prune plums, which are again purple range, but they're not. Pretty much all the family is again close enough related that they respond seasonally the same way. But so I'm going to have to actually check that, because we are a big, we're a stone fruit state. The west side of the state, guys, when you drive across the west part of the state, if you come up east of Grand Rapids on any of the north-south roads, especially from the Michigan border up, you're going to hit areas where the sugar literally sits in the air. The cherry air, or you'll have the apricot air, or you'll have the peach air. And it is because you're at the ripening point, and it's just acres and acres and hundreds of acres of plums and hundreds of acres of cherries. And the farther north you go, cherries are the big thing, as you know, up north, Traverse City cherries. But they're not the only area where cherries are grown in Michigan. Again, across the whole western side, and it's the moisture cycle off Lake Michigan, which the whole western half of the state benefits. So, again, good point there. Thank you for reminding everybody about that who's in Michigan. Guys, you go over on that part of the state, you can make deals, especially once they start picking. Remember, the prices go down. So, but before that, like I said, roll the window down. Don't just drive through there with the air conditioning. Of course, your car will smell like apricots for the next 2 days. But take the time and check that out. It's amazing. And again, it's something when you experience it, you'll never forget. One of those many life experiences. Anyway, we're at the top. Mike, God bless our republic.
Yes to the New World Order.
We shall prevail, ladies and gentlemen. The empire is on the run.
And we are on the march both day and night.
Hoorah! Kick them in the slats, beat them down hard when they try to get back up. You didn't do it right. You better make sure you bust both their knees, because these buggers, if they get up, they're going to hurt you. And you really, in fact, they already tried. You stop. Why are you going to let them get away with it again? Or try to get away with it? Anyway, we're going to be back in a few minutes. The second hour is coming up. It is Thursday and a beautiful, warm, hot, sunny day. I'm turning things OD green. Nancy and I are turning things OD green today. More tactification and more to be done as soon as we're done with the programming tonight, too. We'll be back. LTR coming up.
Liberty's Guardian, Guns and Ammunition, a family-owned business located in the heart of Ohio's hunting country. Let us help you find the right shotgun or rifle for you. Or if you're looking for a pistol or concealed carry, we have a nice selection of compact and subcompact pistols for that too. Check out our website at www.libertiesguardian.com. That website again is www.libertiesguardian.com. Go to the website and check out our selection today.
Join Mark and Don for Weapons Wednesday, where you'll learn how to use everything from your bare hands to your average AR-15.
The 12-gauge autoloader.
Sure.
The 45 long slide.
Yep.
With laser sighting.
You betcha.
The Uzi 9mm.
Yes, sir.
Phased plasma rifle in the 40-watt range.
What are you, crazy?
Wrong.
Okay, they'll talk about that too. So whatever question you have about whatever weapon you have, call Mark and Don on Weapons Wednesday. And remember, your mind is your first best weapon.
We all need to prepare ourselves. You might have the food, water, gold, and silver, but ask yourself, are you truly prepared? That's why you need to visit MaineMilitary.com. MaineMilitary.com carries everything you need. Gas masks, fire starter kits, high-capacity magazines, chemical suits, military surplus items, and much more. Do you own a firearm? MaineMilitary.com has a large selection of pistols and rifles suited for your needs. Are your local stores sold out of ammunition? Call or visit them today for prices on hard-to-find ammo and bulk ammo orders. You don't need to worry about having a military surplus store in your area because MaineMilitary.com is the only store you'll ever need, all from the comfort of your computer. Visit them online today at MaineMilitary.com. That's Maine, like the state, military.com.
I had a dream the other night that, well, I didn't understand. A figure walked in through the mist with a flintlock in his hand. His clothes were torn and dirty as he stood there by my bed. He took off his three-cornered hat, and speaking low to me, he said, "We fought a revolution to secure our liberty. We wrote the Constitution as a shield from tyranny. For future generations, this legacy we gave. In this, the land of the free and home of the brave. The freedoms we secured for you, we'd hoped you'd always keep. But tyrants labored endlessly while your parents were asleep. Your freedom's gone, your courage lost. You're no more than a slave. In this, the land of the free, and home of the brave. You buy permits to travel and permits to own a gun. Permits to start a business or to build a place for one. On land that you believe you own, you pay a yearly rent, although you have no voice in saying how the money's spent. Your children must attend a school that doesn't educate, and your Christian values can't be taught according to the state. You read about the current news in a regulated press, and you pay a tax you do not owe to please the IRS. Your money is no longer made of silver nor of gold. You trade your wealth for paper so your life can be controlled. You pay for crimes that make our nation turn from God and shame. You've taken Satan's number. You've traded in your name. You've given government control to those who do you harm so they could burn down churches and seize the family farm and keep our country deep in debt. Put men of God in jail, harass your fellow countrymen while corrupted courts prevail. Your public servants don't uphold the solemn oaths they've sworn, and your daughters visit doctors so their children won't be born. Your leaders send artillery and guns to foreign shores and send your sons to slaughter fighting other people's wars. Can you regain the freedoms for which we fought and died? Or don't you have the courage or the faith to stand with pride? And are there no more values for which you'll fight to save? Or do you wish your children to live in fear and be a slave? O sons of the Republic, arise, take a stand, defend the Constitution, the supreme law of the land. Preserve our great republic and each God-given right. And pray to God to keep the torch of freedom burning bright. As I awoke, he'd vanished in the mist from whence he came. His words were true. We are not free, but we have ourselves to blame. For even now as tyrants trample each God-given right, we only watch and tremble, too afraid to stand and fight. If he stood by your bedside in a dream while you were asleep and wondered what remains of the freedoms he'd fought to keep, what would be your answer if he called out from the grave? Is this still the land of the free and home of the brave? God bless you, and God bless this republic.
The drums, the drums. I hear the drums. Go to the sound of small arms fire and the drums, young lieutenant. We will provide you with indirect fire and a fire maneuver element to your right. Advance to the sound of small arms fire. And then do the oblique and roll sideways a little bit. And, well, let's come at them from an angle they probably don't expect. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is the second hour of the afternoon intelligence report. I'm Mark Kornke. One day closer to victory for all of our brothers and sisters, both on and behind the lines in occupied territories, southwest, east, northeast, and central. Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to us on Libertytreeradio.4mg.com, Liberty Tree Radio on YouTube, live feed, and we are on AM and FM micro stations, CB base stations, and Ultra Net, Hallmark and Golden Spike technologies east and west of the Mississippi, along with Alaska. Good afternoon to all of our friends out there. It is 6:08 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It is Thursday. It is the 13th of August. It is, it's Thursday the 13th. That means absolutely nothing. Oh, man, that's right. Anyway, It is. Oh, it's my father-in-law's birthday, though. Nancy just mentioned. Nancy's dad's birthday is today, the 13th of August. So happy birthday to Jim Wise out there, James Wise out there. And it is the 12th year of open Fabian Socialist and Soviet Socialist occupation of America with a K. 2020 Old Earth calendar, 2020 year of the Dance of Swords. The battle continues. And it's pretty exciting, as a matter of fact. All kinds of fun stuff going on. As we pointed out in the last hour, the big announcement today, which is not big for any of us, it's like, you're watching a ship sink so far away that you actually just get, like radio reports and some TV pictures, and you go, yeah, could they have avoided this shipwreck? Oh, yes, sir, they could have. Did they just intentionally drive their ship up onto the shoals? Well, yes, sir, they did. But then why is this important? Well, it's just because, well, look. And it's like, well, it's a good, I guess it's good you're showing us this, because then we understand that, well, the idiot sticks are going to be begging for and demanding. There's going to be a whole list of things where they'll be demanding more money and demanding more support, and they're going to need more, quadriplegic homosexual Eskimos with pink hair and Trotsky glasses as socialist workers to help to mind screw whatever population is left there. Yeah, and of course, don't forget the regional police. No, they're getting rid of the police. No, they're switching to the globalist agenda with the vast, large, massive, secret police operation at the national and federal level. That's really what it's all about. That's okay. We understand that, though. We really do. We understand that. We appreciate fully what the agenda is and how the skanks are playing. But anyway, 7-1 is what we understand the vote was. If anybody has any other information on that, maybe off by a vote, I don't think so. Apparently, in Seattle, they voted 7-1 on the city council to defund the police department in Seattle, which is no small affair considering the size of Seattle. It's not the little dot on the map it was when I was growing up. Well, I should say lesser city. It was still a city. It was good sized. But it's a monster as opposed to what it was in the past, and a convolution now at that. And it will be turning into a fascinating little cesspool, and we're going to have Chazistan all over again. Oh, my goodness. They're so excited about that. All right. They're going to get what they want. So we'll see how that works out for everybody. Won't be an issue for us. Will be for all the people who are, having money invested in Seattle Stan. Anyway, next, real quick here. Let's see, where did that go? Oh, by the way, yes, ammunition. I gotta mention that. Before I go any farther, over at Classic Firearms, I got a few things in. I do not know. Somebody asked me real quick when I stopped in today at one of the locations, does Classic have anything right now? Well, you know what? You're sitting on a keyboard. Why don't you go plunk it up? And they did get some other preview partisan. That 7mm looks like it might have actually vaporized as quickly as we mentioned it. Which I would not be surprised. Like I said, there's a lot of 7mm Mausers out there. To get fresh 7mm, especially where people are looking at what's happening and they can't get any other ammunition. But, well, wait a minute, I got Granddad's 7mm Mauser here. Yeah, it's over there in the rack. Okay, well, might as well buy some ammo for that. And so everybody turns to that mindset where it's like, what do I not have ammo for? And that's why the stuff disappears the way that it does or gets sucked up the way that it does. And it doesn't take long, okay? It looks like there's the soft point, but not the ball. The ball's gone. The soft point there's still some of. The ball ammunition looks like in the 7mm it's already taken off the list. It's probably over in the out-of-stock category there, which is not a problem. But they do have the 139-grain soft point, 7mm Mauser metric. So if you guys have one of those Mausers we were talking about, this is a way for you to be able to keep that gun fed. And they did not go crazy with the price. $13.24 a box is what the stuff, has basically been going for. It's 66.2 cents a round, which is no big deal. That's what you're buying sporting ammunition. But it's a good price for sporting ammunition. $13.24? Well, no problem, okay? So you're just not going to buy 1,000 rounds per se, but you know what? you could buy enough to put a full ammo can underneath that 7mm Mauser right now. And if I were you, I would do it, because better that than being able to go boom, boom, then I hate you all. What's he doing? I don't think he has any ammo, sir. I hate you. Always, what do you, and blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to use the curse words, but always using harsh language. And he's throwing something. What's he throwing? Oh, he's throwing rocks. Oh, he's out of ammo. Yeah, but he feels good because he's using harsh language and he's throwing rocks. Okay, anybody want to shoot at him? I don't know, Bob. There's other people probably waiting in the wings that have guns. Maybe we should wait and shoot at them. Well, we got, who's our worst shot in the unit? Oh, Frank. Oh, tell Frank to shoot him. There we go. Maybe it'll take him a couple of rounds, but Frank needs to practice anyway. I hate you. Oh, wow, got him the first time. So much for practice. So, harsh language and rocks, or PPU, very high quality ammunition. I don't know. I think I take the PPU ammunition every time. So, just a little heads up there. Now, another thing. I had a bunch of stuff. Fiocchi. Take your voice. Oh, Fiocchi. There we go. Did you know that Fiocchi is actually Klingon? So it should be Fiocchi. Anyway, I just realized that. So, anyway, if you're looking for Klingon ammunition, Fiocchi is available in a couple of different loads. Not the real expensive $1.17 stuff that you just see there. But a batch did come in, so I think Centerfire's got a little bit of Fiocchi, and so does AIM Surplus. But whether or not it's going to be there in the next 2 hours, you might want to go check it now, look to see what they have, and go from there. Go ahead, caller, jump in there, please.
Yes, sir. I'll change the subject on you a little bit, but for my personal knowledge, do you know anything about the 5.72?
5.72. The 5.7 FN round?
Yes, it's supposed to be carried by the Secret Service and CIA. And I was just wondering, it's such a small little round, and I was wondering why they didn't stick with a 5.5 or 223, you know.
Well, the reason they do that, okay, I'll tell you why. Because they've cranked out a bunch of miniguns that are very, very, very small and offer a lot of firepower, and the biggest thing is storage compactness. A good example is the MP7. Have you seen the MP7?
Yes.
Okay. Look at that gun. That gun is perfect for under the coat concealment. If you've got body armor on and you got spare magazines and you're tucked everything, yeah, you're wearing a suit and you're a muscular guy anyway, that gun would be comfortable to carry in a 1-point sling, just hanging it under the armpit, and or somewhere wherever you want to station it. And all you do is just slide the coat back, pull the gun forward, and which is what they're doing. They've had a problem for years, mostly because the Jewish mob controls those guys. And the example is, remember, they just had to have the Uzi. Let me give you an example. Do you remember when Ronald Reagan was shot?
Yeah.
Remember, what did the Secret Service guy pull out of his coat? What did he have in the package? Actually, it wasn't as much coat. He had an Uzi. Remember the problem he had with bringing that stock down? Guys, and I'll tell you why I laugh about that, because I've shown this to people 1,000 times. I sold more Uzis back in the day, the B models, than I can remember. It was one of those things I had a source for them. I sold the snot out of them, and when I demonstrate them, I'd show everybody, okay, guys, here's what you have to do to get that stock deployed. Now, I'm going to explain something. No matter how hard you try, you're going to fumble with it at some point or another. And when you fumble with it, it's always going to be when you need it, not when you're practicing. Oh, you'll practice and it'll go perfectly. But when the time comes, if you try to deploy it right at the last moment, it's going to lock up on you. They just guarantee that's going to be your chance. Well, lo and behold, when he tried to deploy that Uzi, you'll notice he kept slapping the back of the weapon. He's trying to get that he's trying to get that that last levered arm out, and so he could pull it, and it creates a rigid stock. It's a folding stock. Your best bet if you're is you plan on having it deployed and extended for whatever it is you think you're going to do. Otherwise, get used to the idea of it compressed and practice, because you can control the weapons a heavy lunker. But they replaced that a couple of times now with other weapons, and the MP5 has been in the mix for a long time. But there's a bunch of other weapons that FN has made, and since obviously the Jewish mob that runs FN is now the Jewish mob that runs Secret Service procurement, that's probably what they're stuck with. Okay, they're having to stick with it, they're having to buy. So it's either German, procurement, or whatever other foreign weapon. Now there's a number of other guns out there, but the 5.7 is, it's a little round, but it's the advantage is, remember, they're basically like little mini guns. So you're turning people into cotton candy if you do it right.
That's years ago, before Reagan came into Cincinnati, the Secret Service rented 3 lanes in the Target World shooting gallery. And we stood there and we watched them, and the guy pulled out a Uzi. He put 1 round in it, cleared it, boom. Then he put a 30-round clip in it, and I'm not exaggerating or being funny. He put that up under his shoulder, and out of a 30 round, about 10, 12 of them rounds went into the concrete wall and then went into the silhouette downrange. And we laughed and giggled. I said, well, I don't want that guy to protecting me. But, I was just wondering about that round. I can't find nothing on the ballistic table or anything on it, and I thought maybe you would know about it.
Well, the only thing, the most comparable, and I don't think there's anything in stock, is the 5.7 FN, the 5.7 round that you see the PS90 using. That would probably be the closest by comparison if it isn't the round that they're actually using. And I know there's about 6 new rounds that really they've tried to keep quiet. And this is colonialism. You know what's going on here with this? Thank you for bringing this up. I didn't talk about this yesterday. I really was going to. This is colonialism. And what do you think I mean by that? They're going to rounds that only royalty will have and that they're not allowing into the population's hands. Whereas in the past, we've typically had everything that any government has had. Let me give you an example. I mentioned that 5.7 round. Well, you can get all the 5.7 soft point rounds and whatever you want in mass, but ball ammunition or actual, the actual combat load that is typically carried with the PS90 and the 5.7 pistols and all the other 5.7 guns. Not all of that is available to the population. FN treats Americans here just like HK does. We are a perceived enemy, ergo we're not supposed to have what royalty has. And this is something that was notorious for the British. They did it with us when we were in the colony. When we were the colonies, they wanted to try and restrict what we had then. But all the colonial powers did this in Africa and Asia with the constable or with the colonial forces that they had. They would always have, in many cases, a bastard caliber or a bastard firearm that simply you couldn't get ammunition for unless you went through the government. And that was intentional. And even when they made those, they also made them minimal capacity. In other words, if you had a 5-shot regular bolt-action special gun of whatever kind for your colonial troops that were regular from the Imperium, like they were from Britain or France or whatever, your counterpart gun would look just like what you were carrying for, say, the colonial peasant that was the constable, but the difference is his gun would only be single shot. And for all of you who are thinking, well, Mark, you don't know what you're talking about, guys, there's some beautiful examples of all the stuff that came in from India. And if you'll pay attention, you saw a bunch of those British Lee Enfields that were 410 caliber. Not only were they 410 gauge, forgive me, not caliber. Not only were they 410, but guess what? They were also single shot. The magazine was a fake, was a dummy. They loaded the base up.
Didn't they have a weapon that had a special firing pin also?
That's the Greener shotgun, which was another colonial gun made for the colonies, for the colonial countries. And the only way you were going to get it was by rolling a British soldier, rolling a colonial soldier for the gun, or a British soldier if he was in service, and it was the greener. It had a tri-pin. I had a couple of those. Now, they made a conversion kit. The front of the bolt had depending on what year and model, the one I had a screw front, okay, a flush face threaded front. The firing pins were at 3 points on the outside. You had to have the ammunition to make the gun work, or you couldn't make it work. But they made a conversion for that back to conventional firing pin, to single stab center firing pin. But you had to have the parts to do it, and God knows where the hell they ever went. You could probably build them. We just didn't bother. It was a fascinating gun. It would have been fun to shoot. I had a counterpart that really was a regular 12-gauge black powder, and they were a phenomenal weapon. Looked like a Martini Henry. Depending on which model you have, the silhouette, you wouldn't know the difference between the guy with the shotgun and the guy with the Martini for the most part. So they were decent little weapon, but that was greener, and they made a greener pump gun that was built the same way. I had one of those. And the greener pump guns were totally bastard, totally alien. That's what the government's doing now with all these things that they're piddling with. The peasants aren't supposed to have them. Now, we can build stuff as good as anything that they have, but they don't want us to know about, or they don't want the average person to access it that way, that they're supposedly in some kind of an edge. And again, the advantage is volume fire. A micro assault rifle cartridge like that is very useful. Years ago, we experimented with taking fractured 223 brass and cutting it down half the length, but actually almost, not quite. It would be like, about 2/3 the length. We did a couple different test batches. We cut our own barrel off a chopped M16A1 barrel. We chambered it out, made a screw-type chamber block for it, not a dropping block, and we made a bunch of these little micro assault cartridges, and we clocked them at 2,600 feet per second. We made the same shoulder that we did. What we literally did is just torque down a 5.56 die. We dropped it down to about 2/3. Well, the first ones we did half the length, but that's awful close to a carbine round. Not quite, but it's about the same length. And the neat thing is, you probably could have used a carbine mag for those. That would have been your magazine. It would have been no problem, and it would have fed flawlessly, I think. An M1 carbine, standard 15 shot. I wouldn't go with 30. But as it is, we then went to a 2/3 length case. We built the shoulder exactly the same way as a standard 5.56 round, loaded a standard 55 grain Spitzer, and you know what? Function basically to the same performance range as a regular 5.56 round. So if you're willing to build a gun that was short enough, and by the way, that's what these 5.7 rounds are going into. And again, they've come up with another caliber, supposedly. I guess. I really can't confirm that. I don't even trust numbers anymore, because numbers have not been reliable when representing the actual chambering of a weapon, and that's not an accident. Okay, certain guns are not what they, if you look at the number, the chambering is not what they really are or appear to be. So I wouldn't even necessarily trust anything I'm seeing that has been allowed to the public on the device, but I know that we can make something like it. And to be quite honest, I think that the shortened 5.56 round would still be the more sensible way to go. And in fact, if you wanted to do a cheat, like I said, you knock down the case to a shorter case so it'll fit right into a 15-round 15-round M1 carbine magazine, and then build the gun around that idea. Theoretically, you could make what we originally had talked about, and we never really got around to because nobody wanted to spend the money on a barrel. Somebody else actually did this, though, is rechambering and making a 223 or 5.56 type round for the M1 carbine. Now, imagine that. Think about how that would work. And I don't think it'd be a problem at all. In fact, I believe that you could actually get the standard carbine system to operate with a shortened 5.56 projectile-using case, and I think it would kick ass and take names. And it would be smaller than the M16, and it really wouldn't have any significant issues because, again, you could tailor the charge to match the cup pressure necessary to deal with the chamber. The big thing is, remember how the round seats in a standard carbine as opposed to what you're going to do with a tapered case. It's a very different issue with a straight case 30 caliber carbine. You're going to have to be more precise with your barrel manufacturing, and you're probably going to even float the chamber. It depends on.
Could probably make a 5.56 by 39 quite easily.
Well, it'd be like that. It would still be a hair shorter. Yeah, because 7.62 by 39. Oh, we'll just take the round. Try to drop it into an AR-15, an M1 carbine magazine. The goal was to take. You got to remember when we were doing this in 1978, 1980, and 81 when I was experimenting with this stuff. Carbine mags were like 10 cents a piece. You bought them in, well, you know how it is. You go to the gun show and you could buy 20 of them for, $3-4. You bought a big pile of them if you're willing to buy a box full of them, or in the Cosmoline, in the paper wrap. I think the one ordnance box was 250 cam magazines, and it was like $6. So if you were willing to spend a little more money, you got a whole pile of mags, which I did buy a bunch of those. In fact, I just looked at a price today. Let me give you an idea. I actually have a bunch of these, and they're in the wrapper exactly like they just showed. They're boasting that these are blah, 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 manufactured M1 carbine 15-round mags, and they want $31 a piece for them. That's what the price on it. World War II, M1 carbine mags. Guys, I bought these for less than 10 cents a piece. I could take a handful of these out there, put them for $25 on the market. Mine are just as pristine. In fact, I think mine are prettier than theirs because mine were kept better than theirs. And I'd put $25 on them and dump them all day. And I wouldn't put a dent in my pile, but I sure as hell put some digits back in the pile. So that's just something to think about. But when we were looking at this, it was you take the carbine mag, you come up with a barrel, and the way to do the barrel is, like I said, they were doing demilitarized M16 barrels, and at the time what they were doing is they were taking a torch and cutting the barrel just before the flash hider, and they were scoring the chamber at the other end with one strike. They were putting a torch right through it. They weren't doing a drill. But what that gave you was all the rest of the barrel to work with. Well, first of all, think about this, because the volume of the barrel is to compensate for pressure with the chamber. But if you're going with a shorter case, the chambering space that you had left, if you machined it, was more than sufficient. The barrel that you had left, where you cut it, retrimmed it, and then you would rebore it. You wouldn't change the bore of the barrel. It would be 5.56. On the other end, you could either whack it and crown it for original prototyping, or you could whack it and then put a thread on it, thread the thing on, and then also, by the way, because it's an M16 barrel, 20-incher, I never did measure the full length, but if it came to under 16 inches, I'd have threaded it and put a larger Mach 177 flash hider on it and tack welded it into place. Now that barrel is going to be at least a half inch or two over minimal length requirements. So in other words, we mapped it all through. That could be done today. This is one of those things where, guys, we got to be thinking now, what are they using? Let's figure out what they're using, and let's see if we can make it better or make something that would be comparable. Really piss them off. Make something comparable, but that we aren't, the taxpayers are going to get screwed by because we're going to make it in America. It's going to go to Americans, not to the Jewish mob, as far as the money, and American people, American suppliers, and in the process works better than the junk that they were forced to take from their kosher handlers, which I'm sure works just fine, I'm sure, to a degree, but just because the government bought it doesn't mean it works. Okay, it's a matter of, look at the government you have right now. This is something I would point out. Well, they got the blah, blah, blah. And it's like they got it because Senator so-and-so and Republican and Democrat Congressman so-and-so, Blatzenstein, Bloomberg, Izzy, Cohen, and blah, 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 all told him, you're going to take our buddy's weapon, and this is how it works. And by the way, they got a brown envelope for you, so you're going to rave about it when we have the hearings. And then we get stuck with whatever. And besides, again, it's a closed circuit. It's a minority group, first of all, Secret Service minority group anyway. So it's easier to shove something down their throat. And how long it's going to last or whether or not they're going to stick with it, who knows. One of the other things I've pointed out before, that's another thing, the 30 caliber Tokarev, Fluffy. We've talked about this before. If you take a discarding Sabo cup and you load, take a Tokarev, a boxer prime. In fact, here's what's really great: a PPU brass case, heat annealed. You take one of those, you pop the primer, you load it up, utilizing the charges are all worked out. By the way, I've got to bring the company's name up again. But you could take a discarding sable cup with a 50 grain Spitzer. You can't use the 50 grain 5.56 Spitzer. But you can load a Tokarev round with a discarding sabot and a 55 grain Spitzer, which will fit in the magazine and it'll have no problem locking in the chamber. What you're doing when you pull the trigger, you're looking at over 3,500 feet per second, and we've pressed it up to 4,800. We're talking about a ray gun, and in fact, the biggest thing, it has to be a jacketed round. Nothing else will survive those velocities. And even then, one of the problems is the closer you get to the 5,000 feet per second mark, which you can achieve with bizarre technology. We're originally doing a 3-inch thick 30 caliber bore barrel. Actually, it wasn't 3-inch, forgive me, 2.5-inch thick 30 caliber bore barrel. We were able to push just under 5,000 feet per second with a discarding sabot Tokarev pistol round. Do you know what that would do to body armor? Can you imagine what that would do to body armor? There's nothing anybody could wear that would probably slow that down. And 5.56 is not a great penetrating round. But all of a sudden, you've got this ray gun, a 50 caliber projectile. You've pushed all kinds of energy behind it. Remember, it's in a discarding sabot cup. Even at 32, 33, 3,400 feet per second, remember, you're pushing it out of a 5-inch barrel or a 4-inch barrel, depending on which gun it is, because they've got both out there in Tokarev. So imagine that. See, this is the scary part about all this stuff with, this is all off the shelf. This has already been proven. There is nothing I'd have to reinvent. It's all stuff I could get without having to go to, other than just go to certain points. In fact, I wouldn't even use a Magnum primer. I use a standard primer. My powder is off-the-shelf powder charge. The sabot cups are out of Utah. The 50 grain Spitzer comes out of, I can get it from any one, Spear or Hornady. And I can even get several variants. So if I want to experiment to see if I can get better performance, I could do that. And this is all stuff we've done. If you look at American Apparel, or forgive me, not American Apparel, slap Mike in the Mark in the microphone. There we go, I'll get it right. If you go to and watch Equipping for the New World Order Part 2, I want you to go look on the table. Now, understand that video was done in what year? It was done in the 90s, okay, early 90s. So if you doubt that we haven't been researching this, you might look on the table and you'll notice that the magazine that the Tokarev is, the magazine that's loaded there, and some of the rounds that are sitting on the table are Tokarev discarding sabot 5.56. What year is this? Guys, we've already done that how many years ago? It's kind of like that been there, done that thing. Now here's something I pointed out, which you could do. If you're willing to machine, which nowadays with CNC, a CNC lathe would be fantastic for this, you take drill rod. You get a 5.56 diameter, you get a 23, 24 caliber drill rod. By the way, do you think you can get that? Oh, wait a minute, drill rod. You do realize it comes in like increments. It's drill rod. So what you do is you pick the next step up in metals. You turn around and you tool down a solid steel projectile that mimics, although instead of the Spitzer base, now you remember Spitzer are flat, the 5.56 Sierra boat tail that typically is used, you could mimic the base of that and then taper the projectile so that it mimics the Spitzer in terms of the rest of the form, so it's short enough that it would seat properly in the cup with the original design. Because when we did this, we used the original sabot cups made out of Utah, but we used the Spitzer because we needed to shorten the seated bullet so that it would fit in the magazine so that it would cycle. Otherwise, we could build it with a standard 55 grain Sierra boat tail round, okay? and then individually inserted into a Tokarev or into a custom little pocket rifle or a single-shot pistol that we could build. And you're achieving all of we're talking the velocities that are just ungodly coming out of something that's handheld. Felt recoil would be minimal. It is not low pressure, high velocity, but your cut pressures are not excessive because it is a sabot, and because you're also able to manipulate your powder charge and drop it down dramatically from a conventional charge because you're not pushing the bullet as singular weight. You're actually taking advantage of a number of other physical property formula issues that are fantastic when it comes to utilization of the sabot in larger cases with sub-caliber munitions. And this is, by the way, where did this all come from? Tank gunnery. All we did was take tank gunnery, formulas and drive them down into a handgun and a rifle. So the science is finished. The science is done. And they don't want you to think about any of this. Do you realize that? Do you realize that I'm just saying is like some of the big taboos? We don't want them to get the idea that they can build better than we have, or, well, wait a minute, if I build something like this and you're wearing $1,000 or $3,000 worth of body armor, but the body armor is useless, then all you've done is impeded your troops while offering very little of any safety against the infantry threat in the opposing forces. Or, again, the perceived threat. Again, the American people are the perceived threat by the globalists, the ring knockers, ergo then the idiot sticks that are in the pentagram, and the rest is history. So this is just one solution. And think about what we were just saying. If you were to take, first of all, the first rule is this with development. You want to take something where you have an excess of debris that the enemy has made, or that you have made. What do you mean by debris, Mark? Well, real simple, okay? Example is I have piles and piles and piles of 5.56. People were stomping around on the ground. They've been firing up against each other, shooting at each other, throwing grenades, dumping 40 millimeter on each other. Boom, everything's been dropping all over the place. Battlefield quiets or shifts for a period of time. You scavenge the field. Any case that is to proper spec and still in usable condition would go directly into inventory turnaround. That becomes another 5.56 round. That becomes another 7.62 by 39 round. That becomes another 5.7 round, et cetera, et cetera. You go through, in any case it was within acceptable service tolerances, would be recycled to become a reloaded case. But then you have Category 2. Category 2 are damaged throat, damaged shoulder. Now, this is where you have to look because, again, this is a lot of work for a handful of rounds. We're not talking a handful of rounds. We're talking about production. Lazy people, their brain gets warped thinking about this because lazy people don't want to have to work. Work is a four-letter word for a lazy person. In reality, when your life depends on it, you're going to get highly motivated. And by the way, everybody becomes part of the building process. So nobody's sitting on their dead ass and doing nothing. Everybody is pitching in. That includes the soldiers. The fact of the matter is that reprocessing of this type, and by being able to collect it, you send it to the rear. The sorters do the picking. Once they've done the picking, grade B could be reconfigured if it is beyond expandable repair. In other words, is there a way that it can be dressed so that it can be reinitiated for original purpose? No. That means that it's going to alternate purpose. Alternate purpose are the new rounds, the new chamberings. This is where we take a standard damage case. Let's say that you have a 30-06, a 308. It's crushed. An 06 would be really great because I can still turn it into a 308 case. I can still turn it into an 8mm case. I can still turn it into a 7mm case like the one I was just telling you about earlier. I can turn around and take the 5.56 round and modify it into any number of different chamberings. By the way, it can be used for 32 ACP or 380 with proper trimming and or sizing by chemical. Now, the other thing is, we've been talking about it here for quite some time now. I've been flapping my yap about this. Modified rounds. I have come up with a short assault rifle cartridge. You're already seeing these out there. We've already done this decades ago. Somebody just invented the idea, has done some of it, and has been playing around again. It's inevitable when you have tons of junk. And again, this is junk. You're taking a case that otherwise you throw into the scrap bin for brass casting to make a cannon or make maybe another receiver for a gun. But instead, you're gonna, you're doing it. You're looking at it. You go, you got so much usable material. You have resizing dies. You can build a 5.56 short case. Now, what you want to build it around what you have on the shelf that allows you to immediately turn the system around. You don't have to build magazines. You don't have to come up with a barrel system. The barrel's been settled because you're going with a 5.56 barrel. Debris barrels, damaged gun barrels, barrel weapons that have been shattered, again, in whatever way, may still have usable material length barrels. So this is why I've said all battlefield detritus will be recovered. Everything gets scavenged, but it doesn't necessarily get smelted and melted. Instead, you're going to prioritize. If there's enough barrel left on what's, let's say, an M4, that can become a light assault barrel or a submachine gun barrel. It's already been used for the purpose, and if it needs to be opened up or if it needs to be altered in whatever way, that's the job of the reprocessing site that is going to prioritize usage of the components that are available and the materials to whatever length are available. This is where we have to be thinking now, not waiting till the last minute or the last ditch crap that we always hear about. How about you think about that before we get there, and by the time we're done, we're not going to be borrowing from the bankers to the degree that they think, and we are going to purpose fast enough, and we already have the plans to, again, minimize to maximize. This has to do with time usage in production. Minimize and to maximize. Minimize wherever you can. What have I said before about finish on the outside or finish where it's not relevant? There is no such thing. There is nothing. There's no relevance there. Wherever fit and finish is critical to the mechanical operation of a device, that's the only thing that counts. Pretty on the outside is totally irrelevant to the process. But I want my gun to look cool. I need a scar. Because scars look they're plastic. They look cool. Besides, I see all kinds of write-ups on them. Oh, I got an ugly gun. It's real ugly. But you know what? It'll do everything that one will. Except I can get 10, 12, 20, 30 of them for the price of one of those scars. I'd say that I can arm more troops. Not only that, if nothing else, I can cache more weapons for the troops I've got. If I'm in a guerrilla warfare operation, the more guns I have, I don't walk around and move if it looks like my people are at risk and I'm moving them clandestinely. I'm going to have guns waiting for them, and in fact, if they're smart, they have caches in different places. Caches, I don't give a squat how you pronounce it. You know what I'm talking about. Idiot stick, whoever opened their face when I said cache, slap them for me. But anyway, fact of the matter is that, and by the way, that's my sergeant who was giving the class on caches, and you don't argue with Sarge when he's in charge of the class. However he pronounced it is the way you all better pronounce it, okay? Just shut up because he knows what he's doing. And he's still alive. All the other guys that were not paying attention are dead. Anyway, the whole process is pretty straightforward in that what we do is we will prioritize and cycle and move through. The Russians did this quite successfully with what were reject barrels in production. A reject rifle barrel could become 3 submachine gun barrels. A reject submachine gun barrel could become 1 or possibly 2 pistol barrels, usually 1. But it depends on what it was, what point in refabrication, whether or not it can be done. That's why everything the Russians did was what caliber? Well, let's see. Let's go through this. 7.62 by 25. 7.62 by 39. 7.62 by 54R. Hell, even 7.62, 7.62 Nagant revolver. You see, they weren't stupid, although the commies are horrible and they're dirty rats and all need to be dead. There's people that are forced to work for them, and actually people start looking at, well, I got minimized slaves, I got to maximize output. How do I do it? Now, we're not slaves. In fact, we got the thinkers, they got the stinkers. We need to be of the mindset so that we defeat them from the get-go. We have to put the first batch of communists down hard because the next wave's coming in right on top of them, and we'll be with them shoulder to shoulder for a short time until we kill off the ones we know we've got to kill off. that are the close-up ones, the ones that can hide, they're going to be dead faster. And then the ones that can't hide so much, they get deadified next. What do I mean by that? Well, like I told you before, if you said Black Lives Matter in front of you or the Antifa in front of you, you see the white ones, shoot their ass. Why? Real simple. They're the ones that can hide. They'll be the ones poisoning your food and whatever. The other ones won't hide so much. They're not so easy anyway. But the others, they think they're going to be able to get close, and they'll be able to murder you in 100 different ways. And they are wicked, they are pea-brained, and they are Fruit Loop, and they are dangerous. So, anyway, ideas, not just complaining about the problems. What is it we can do? We need to be thinking about deep manufacturing and remanufacturing. And we are not going to try to desperately keep up with AR-15 production when there are other weapons that can be produced for less and we can have more of, utilizing many of their components. Example, I wouldn't change the magazine on anything for the time being, simply because every time I find an enemy corpse, every time I walk across a battlefield, there's going to be junk dropped, laying around and whatever. Now, I got to be careful with some of the stuff that's dropped. I better pay attention. But for the most part, if I've made the corpses in front of me and they've been fighting a running gun battle, they've dropped stuff just like I have. And like I've told you before, in a running gun battle, you drop it and then you reload and you worry about picking it up later. Why? Well, if you live, you can go back and pick it up. If you don't make it, you really don't care. See how that works? Now, ideally, that's not in every condition, but in a special close, everybody brags about these close quarter combat situations. Well, that's how the exchange is going to work. You're too busy putting bullets down range and you're trying to throw more volume fire up. Now, your enemy's done that. In fact, your enemy is more likely to be conditioned to that. I will point out, one of the little tricks, why is it SEALs were so effective in terms of speed in combat? Do you know what the one feature was? What do you think the one critical feature that made SEALs so much better than everybody else when it came to speed and, in the assault? You know what it was? They had bags full of mags and they dropped the mag. When they fired a mag and they finished it, they dropped it and they chucked another one in. And when they got back, when they were done with their assassinations or whatever they were set out to do, and remember, with all the Phoenix program, it was just nothing but murder and assassinations. You go and you catch somebody off guard and you kill them in their house, maybe the whole family. You go on to do another one. Now, don't he say, you're giving them bad. No, that's the program and the way it was set up. So, with that being the case, what was their claim to fame that made them better? Dropping their mags. More so than anything else. So when they go in, I have a lot of guys that really were SEALs that I worked with, and the guys tell you the same thing. It's like, here's one of the tricks that nobody wanted to do, because two things. Number one, you might need the mags if you unfortunately get pinned down, but the logic was, since you were going in on what was a short trip raid, you didn't care. Just like nowadays, if they're coming out to kill Americans, their logic is they're going to come in your backyard, kick in the door, kill you, and then run back out. They'll get picked up, or they're going to go to the SUV, whatever they're going to do, and they're out of here. You have to be ready for that, so that when they come out, you just make sure that you don't let any of them get back. And by the way, you'll follow the trail of mags wherever they went to, pick all the mags up. Now, they probably won't pocket them. They may if they're trying to be sterile. But if we go into a conflict, they're not going to worry about that. And if they've killed people in the process of doing that, whatever assassins are sent out, and they'll be basically in that same venue, then they're going to probably use the same methods. So you can pretty well count on it. If you're smart, once you kill them, you go back and track out where they came from, and amazingly enough, where they first started to engage and make contact, you'll probably find all kinds of goodies laying around. Well, at least a few anyway, useful goodies. They go in the guns that you just took from the enemy. Caller, go ahead. Who do we have?
Hey, we got Tom. I've been wondering this. Can you see like the Dakota fire pits? Can you see them through thermal?
I'm sorry, repeat that? Do you see the cone of fire of?
No, I said, can you see Dakota fire pits? Can you see the fire and smoke and stuff through thermal, or are they invisible to thermal, or what?
Oh, no, any discharge is going to pop up. If I don't know if you spent any time with Don, we actually worked with the thermal, and we're ready. We were going to actually do another video. He was kind of wondering what else did we want to do. And one of the things, as we pointed out, other than using some of the suppression devices, these new bucket devices they're putting on the front, would probably cover some of the signature off the end of the muzzle, but still there's going to be a pulse out of the front of whatever it is, no matter what it is. You're still going to be able to see that, even if they were thermally reduced. And a lot of these characters, got to remember, the clothing is treated. The ghillie suits are triple treated. Most people don't know that. They have a triple treatment, which, by the way, is all stuff that's over the counter. So you may not see them, but every time and any time a weapon is discharged, you are going to see a thermal signature, yes.
I asked about a Dakota fire pit.
Okay, a cone of fire?
No, a Dakota, a Dakota fire pit.
I don't know how this is not registering, but I'm trying to figure out what you're saying.
Dakota fire pits. You know, like North Dakota and then fire pits?
He said a Dakota fire pit.
A Dakota, okay, God, I don't know why I can't understand the third word. Tar pit?
Fire, like a bonfire, fire, F-I-R.
Okay, fire pit. I still don't understand what we're talking about here.
I asked if thermal if you can see one of them through a thermal, like a thermal thing.
You mean a Dakota? Are you talking about an underground fire pit, like one of those fire chimneys?
Yes.
Well, if you screed it, okay, there's a couple tricks. You can break down the thermal discharge. You can use brush, whatever. Well, you're in a totally different direction. That had nothing to do with the firearm I was talking about.
No, I changed the subject.
Were you listening to the program?
A little bit. I've been busy. I've been trying to get my house.
Okay, so was this because of a video that somebody put out where they're trying to claim that the fire pit would be?
No, this is something I've been wondering because everyone says, well, you could pick out. Because I was told that by some people that you could pick out certain kind of fire.
No matter what, if there is an exhaust point, and there is with any kind of the little underground chimney fire point systems that are made, that's going to be the hot spot, obviously. In fact, I'll tell you what, all you have to do is watch what happened during Desert Dust 1, The Adventure Begins. You've got the brag-up pictures where the Air Force is going into the ammo bunkers, and all the bunkers are cold. And what they were going by, there was a little thermal spike off of the chimney that was probably where the troops stayed that would be operating and tending the ammo bunkers, which there was probably 100 little bunkers there. Well, they were laughing and chuckling how they dropped the bomb right down the chimney of the little bunker, and the thermal imagery was shown to everybody, and they showed how negligible or small that little plume or target area was, which had been screened to a degree. Not screened to protect, just nature how it was set up. With any of these, one of the first things you want to do is try to distribute or disperse the thermal signature. One of the ways to do that is, if you are in this season, for instance, it would help to also disperse the smoke as you use cut branches with extensive foliage. You station those over the underground pit or whatever you build, and we're talking a very small device to begin with. The objective behind this is that it disperses whatever thermal rise and distributes it into the foliage. This is a trick that's been used for a long time, even back during Vietnam, well, way before Vietnam, but during Vietnam. The Viet Cong knew about the thermal threat, even because the Russians and the Chinese told them about it. So, again, we'll touch on that when we get to 8 o'clock, because that is a good point. Some of the other issues, how to deceive, not just with fire stations in the field, but, in other words, fire pits, things that are creative. There's another name for it. It's not just the Dakota fire pit. There's a couple others that are basically chimneys, little chimney flue systems. They're easy to build. They are easy to abandon. But you would still want to canopy them so that they are more difficult to identify. Double, triple canopy, in other words, layers of objects that are organics between the objective, will help to disperse the signature. Anyway, more on that in a minute because we're an hour. We got to go for now. God bless our republic.
That's the New World Order.
We shall prevail, ladies and gentlemen. The Empire's on the run. We're on the march. We'll be back here 1 hour from now. The evening intel report coming up. Meanwhile, Ed taking over and more LTR right here on Liberty Tree Radio.
Yes, we are the sons of